This is the concierge, sir.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and in this episode, we are visiting steakhouses again. So I've actually done a steakhouse episode before, but it was quite a while back, and someone asked me for a updated steakhouse list, and I'm glad to, explain. This comes from Robert. Thank you so much for commenting or DMing me on Concierge Confidential, our Instagram page, Concierge Confidential _LV. So yeah, I will give you my top steakhouses. I actually just went to a really good steakhouse about a week or two ago, and I got asked by a coworker for some recommendations because that's what happens when you were, used to be a concierge. You still stick with it. So we're going to be going over some of our top steakhouses in Las Vegas coming up next. Okay, everybody, so welcome back. So we're going to be talking about our top steakhouses, or my top steakhouses, and it might differ from a lot of people. This is actually, one of like the great questions for people who live in Las Vegas or do anything in terms of recommending stuff in town. And it's all based on, a couple different things. One, your own taste, also your budget. Steakhouses are probably one of the more expensive things to, do anywhere, let alone in Las Vegas. Honestly, Las Vegas steakhouses are probably some of the most expensive types of cuisine that you can get in the entire United States. I've seen steakhouses in Los Angeles that are not as expensive as steakhouses in Las Vegas. It's actually pretty wild. So I don't know what it is. I actually get I'll probably go to a steakhouse someplace else before I go to a steakhouse in Las Vegas, just because of the price point. The steakhouses in Vegas are great, but the thing is, when you come to a steakhouse in Vegas, you're always trying to sort of figure out what is the differentiator between them. Why should I go to this place other than this place? And you don't need to go to something crazy in terms of the presentation and things that don't actually matter to the steak. But sometimes things that actually don't matter to the steak do matter for the restaurant. So when I talk about things like ambiance, that obviously has nothing to do with the steak, but it does add to the experience that you're having for your dinner. So for example, a really bad example of this place is Poppy Steak. Poppy Steak is a really cool room, very hip, very modern, and they have some of the most expensive steaks I've ever seen in my life. And for no good reason. They have this whole gold presentation in this sort of the steak presentation in this golden suitcase, and it's a whole sort of nightclub thing. And again, you're paying for the experience, but that's kind of a stupid experience. I'm not going to lie. I haven't done it, so I haven't been able to experience what it's like. I've been to a nightclub before, and I've done the whole, lights and the whole thing, and that's cool, sure, very fun if you want attention, but then, you got to eat the steak. So, I don't know, it's totally up to you. All these different price points do make a little bit of a difference, and, experience, ambiance, what you're looking for that particular night, vibe, is it a celebration? It does sort of change what you're looking for. So I'm actually just going to kind of go through it as you're in Las Vegas for, 2.5 nights or, 2.5 days is essentially what we use. And you want to go to a steakhouse one of those days, and which is one that is worth your time and money to experience. So I'll just kind of go through some of my favorites. I'm not going to rank them, although that'd be fun. My rankings are kind of tough sometimes. And so we'll go through some of our steakhouses. So what am I looking for when I go to a steakhouse? I'm looking for, one, the price point. How expensive is it? Does it have one steak on the menu that I'm able to, choose from? Or does it have, 3 or 4 steaks on the menu that are in my price range? I would say an affordable steak in Las Vegas is going to be between $68 and $80. That's an affordable steak, and all different types of cuts. I would say anything from a fillet, which fillets are usually going to be 8 ounces. That's usually a smaller cut. Not quite a filet mignon, but a fillet is usually quite small. Those are usually going to be $65, $68. Then you can also go to the 3 major cuts that you usually get in Las Vegas are going to be a filet mignon. I'm going to give you 4, but a filet mignon, a New York strip, and a ribeye. Those are kind of like the major cuts. Then you have skirt steak, which that's obviously going to be an option for a lot of places that have an extensive, steak program. They're going to have usually Wagyu and Kobe beef, which those are totally different. They'll have their own cuts as well. And they usually will sometimes say, they won't even say ribeye, they'll just say Kobe whatever, and go from there. But your three major like steaks that you're going to get in those affordable price ranges that are usually American-grown farms are going to be filet, New York strip, and a ribeye steak. Also check out how many ounces you get in the steak. That is also important that sometimes gets overlooked. If you're going to share, it also depends on the person you're with. I would actually highly recommend sharing steaks in Las Vegas. I think it's one of those things that really gets overlooked in terms of, when you're ordering food. It's actually what really adds to your, obviously to the bill, along with alcohol. Alcohol is the number one thing that adds to your bill and why these bills are so expensive. But like when I go out with my mom or with my parents, so let's just say there's three of us, the average price point for somebody like that go to Las Vegas for a steakhouse is usually about $125 to $145 per person. So you're really looking for like three people, looking at between $300 and almost $400 at that point. So, or $450, I should say. So if we're able to get it under $300, I would say in like the $200 to $300 range, that's actually a pretty good deal. Because usually what'll happen is me and my mom will share a steak, and then we get like, a couple different sides to choose from. And I don't think that's actually a terrible idea. Just because my dad will pick at it. He'll get his own item. He usually doesn't do a whole steak by himself. And if he does, he'll share with my mom and I'll get my own steak and vice versa. But sometimes people like to have their own item. But I would highly recommend if you come to Las Vegas that sharing steaks shouldn't be considered taboo. And it's actually probably a really good idea, especially if you want to try a lot of things in the menu. Because steaks by themselves, if you do two like ribeye steaks for, let's just say $75, you're looking at, almost $150, and that's just for your two steaks. So, and you haven't even gotten appetizers, you haven't gotten sides, you haven't gotten dessert, and you're already looking at a $150 bill before you even get started. So it's not bad to share because then you get more items. But again, that's just if you're looking at it through, a budgetary restriction lens. If you have all the money in the world, obviously get whatever you want. But I'll just kind of start with one of my favorites. I do really like Bavette's. Bavette's is over at the Park MGM. Bavette's is a very dark, very Chicago-style steakhouse. It's really good for dates just because it is very intimate. It does have sort of a moody sort of look and feel to it. It doesn't get super loud on the inside, but it can. And again, it's a little bit dark for those of you who may need lights to actually read the menu. It can be quite dark for you. Beautiful bar. There is no TVs in there. So for those of you that are sports fans, you are not going to be seeing a television. And it's also really nice because it's actually set apart from the casino because it is sort of enclosed. So you aren't going to have a lot of distractions. Obviously, it's going to feel very much like this is a restaurant. It is not part of a casino, which some people really enjoy. And I think we're going back to that in a lot of our casinos. But really great items on the menu. They do have the bone marrow, which my dad loves ordering the bone marrow at Bavette's. He'll actually go to Bavette's just to order the bone marrow. You get usually like 5 giant sort of halves of bone. And usually comes with, the very thin, very toasty pieces of bread, toast essentially. And he doesn't even use those. He usually just goes with it, dives right in. But he'll usually do those. And then the burger's really good there as well, which is kind of random. But the steaks, they do have lots of different options for those. I'll drop all the... usually, I would say most of the steaks in here are going to be between... their steak frites is probably their most approachable thing on the menu. It's steak and fries. And that usually runs... closer to around, $68 with everything, included in that particular space. Again, give or take, a couple, $5 or $6 when I'm kind of throwing out these prices because they do fluctuate. But Bavette's, they also have really great salads. They have really great soups. Very, very, moody inside. I really like the bar. They do make a lot of their own like custom old fashions, which I think is always a nice touch, but I don't always need just because, hey guys, I know what I want when I ordered my old fashioned. But yeah, Bavette's usually a pretty easy place to make a reservation for. The only time you have to worry about when you're trying to make a reservation for Bavette's is if they have an event inside of the Dolby Theater there, something like Lady Gaga or like a comedian or something, just because a lot of people do want to have sort of that fine dining experience and then go to the restaurant, then go to the show, and they don't have as many fine dining options at Park MGM. Bavette's would be one. They would also have the library, which is inside of it's part of Nomad, which is inside of Park MGM, and they have Bavette. They have Best Friend, which is like their like Asian fusion cuisine restaurant inside of Park MGM. So I think I'm actually just going to pull up the menu for you guys, which always love MGM resorts because they give us menus that don't actually have prices, which is always really annoying. So if you ever have trouble, this is another sort of like pro tip, which if you've listened to the podcast before, you kind of know that if you have trouble finding the prices for some of these restaurants, go to Yelp or OpenTable and then go to the photos. So usually the photos is at the top. It'll say see all photos. You will usually have them in different sections. You want pictures of the menu. Click on it, and when you get there, look at the date that is closest, most recent. And people usually take pictures of the menu and post it online, which is quite helpful. That's actually probably the best usage of Yelp as well as OpenTable. Like if you're looking at reviews, I don't always trust reviews. That's actually a really big thing. I like to trust my eyes. I think I'm, pretty good observer of it, because usually the photos are usually terrible. Most people take, no offense to everybody, terrible photos of food. It's really one of the hardest things to take pictures of, which is why it's hard to do it professionally. You need an extra light, which is why I don't like doing it sometimes because, it looks super, super annoying. Like I wouldn't like to flash a light inside of Bavette's just because it's so dark. But if people's food looks good on Yelp, that's tough. So like, the Yelpers reviews, not the actual restaurant, because that's professionally done. But if it looks good on Yelp, then it's probably going to be good when you get there because it's going to look like 10 times better. So just kind of looking at the menu itself, their filet mignon, which is a 6-ounce cut, that's $56. Traditional filet mignon, which is 10 ounces, that's $85. They have a bone-in ribeye, which is 20 ounces. That is $99. A 20-ounce steak, by the way, guys, should be shared. That's gigantic. Then they also have their dry-aged bone-in New York strip. That's $93. And their classic ribeye Chicago cut, which is 16 ounces. That's pretty good for like a pretty large, like somebody with a larger appetite. That one's going to be $77. So I would actually end up doing like the classic ribeye. It's boneless usually, and I'd be cool with that. So $77 is probably like the sweet spot in terms of what you would get for something like for a ribeye, because you could see here the dry-aged bone-in ribeye, which is 20 ounces, is almost $100. So if you're able to get it for $77, and then you get like, let's just say one side, that's probably going to be $15. You're probably looking at almost, you're probably looking at about $92 for the steak and the side. And if you get a cocktail, it's $20. So now we're over to $100. And then maybe like an appetizer, dessert, you're around $150. So again, it can be quite, pricey. But if you go back up to the top, they do have their ribeye steak, steak frites, which that is $50. So I told you guys it was $65. It is $50. It's $49. So not a bad price for a steak and fries in Las Vegas. And especially if you want something that's, on the more affordable side of this particular restaurant, not a bad choice. And their roasted bone marrow is $37. So for those of you wondering, $37, and definitely one of their signatures, 1,000%. They also do have like a bunch of different, like very classic salads. They have a wedge salad. They also have like a Caesar salad. Honestly, guys, I would say unless you're like really killing to have a salad, which people love to have salads with their steaks, try to avoid getting salads in most restaurants in Las Vegas. They're honestly the most generic thing you can get. I know it's something that you always want, but they're honestly the most overpriced things in a restaurant are the salads. That's like one of them, obviously, other than like buying a bottle service in a nightclub. I would say that's one of the more overrated things or overpriced things in a restaurant are salads. Like a salad's going to taste like a salad. Like I've done it where I've eaten a salad and I'm like, oh my God, this salad's so good. But it's like lots of salads can be very good. But soups are good. Like soups are actually like 1,000% worth it just because soups can differ. They have different layers. And I think that those are usually worth the price of admission. They also have their cheeseburger and they also have their French dip, which their burgers, $38. And their French dip is $36. I recently did pay for a $39 burger at, at Delilah's. I don't do that often. And the only reason that I did it was because I was sitting in the bottom area of the restaurant. And, I kind of felt weird that I wasn't getting food. So I ended up getting the cheeseburger, which is great. It was a delicious cheeseburger. But when you really add up all the totals, it would have been like a $19 or $20 burger, and the fries, because it came with fries, are $20 by themselves if you get them as a side. So really, you're just adding them both together, and then that's the price you get. So sure, if you want to do the, connecting all the dots. But yes, it is a very extravagant, expensive burger that you could honestly have gotten for, $16. But hey, that's the world we live in. Other than that, though, really like Bavette's. Highly recommend. I know I went kind of long on that one. I kind of sort of streamlined going through, but I was sort of breaking down the inside of the restaurant, what I'm looking for, and this sort of ticks all the boxes. Really great for dates, really great for, intimate, maybe celebratory things. That's only going to be a very small group. I don't typically recommend larger groups for Bavettes because it's very dark. It is going to get, you guys are going to be very loud, which is your prerogative. And they do have a room in the back that you're able to sit at as well. But I would say this is more of like a small groups kind of dining option. If you're looking for a larger option, really fun place, STK over at the Cosmopolitan. I won't get super into detail on this, but this is much more of a party vibe, much more of a place you're going to have drinks. You're going to have, your steak that you're also going to, share. It's very expensive. I'm not going to sort of get past that. I actually don't really enjoy this place that much for the food, but if you're going as a group, highly recommend STK because it is a very loud, a very fun, a very vibrant place. But again, I don't always recommend it in terms of the actual food being, delicious. But a place that I do find that is quite delicious if you venture downtown, and it might just because it's, fresh on my brain, is over at Barry's, over at Circa. I don't recommend Andiamo. You're going to hear that a lot from people who live in Las Vegas or go to downtown a lot. They'll say, oh my God, you have to try Andiamo. It's okay, but honestly, I don't think it's worth your time. The main entrance is by a bathroom. Sorry for those of you that, are lovers of Andiamo. But I think Barry's is so much more superior. It's obviously more expensive. Highly recommend sharing the steaks there as well. They've really upped their sides. They have really good sides. They have cream corn, which is delicious. They have really great Palms puree, which I love. They also have asparagus, of course, on the menu. They have bone marrow on the menu. They also have a really great half chicken. My dad ordered the half chicken and absolutely loved it. He thought the sauce was phenomenal. And the service there is very, very good, very, very, upper tier in terms of the service in Las Vegas. You have to go down sort of to the bottom level of Circa to go in. It's very much separate from the rest of the casino. And I found out that if you go to a certain part of the restaurant, they have TVs, which was nice because we're watching the Home Run Derby. But really crowded bar, really hard to dine if you're there by yourself. Highly recommend you go here as a couple or a group. I would say 4 to 6 people is perfect. You're able to share, which is great. I'm big on sharing stuff just because the way Vegas is priced, that's the way that it goes. Really great cocktail menu. So really, really great whiskeys over at Barry's. And again, you would be looking at closer to the $3 to $4 sign thing here. So you'd be looking at about definitely like at least $150 a person. If you're not sharing, if you're getting lots of cocktails, that kind of thing. So just keep that in mind. I think the three of us went and ended up being about $200, which is not bad for three people eating a steak, a half chicken, sides. We did not do dessert. We did do an appetizer though, which we did do the salad, which again, I just told people not to do a salad, but we didn't have any other appetizers that we wanted to do, and we wanted to share. And when you're sharing one salad amongst three people, it is actually worth it. So I know I have to do a lot of amending as I go, but like when I go to a restaurant by myself, I do not recommend getting a salad because the salad sometimes is like $20 and it's like you're by yourself. But if you get like a $22 salad for three people, if you cut that, amongst three, that's a $7 salad for each person. So it ends up actually being a little bit worth it. So you just kind of have to sort of do some of the mental math when you're there. But Barry's absolutely phenomenal at Circa. Highly recommend, especially if you're here for a group or, if you want to have like a night out with the guys. It's very very convenient or very appropriate for like a group of guys to go out and eat at Barry's kind of like after like a fun weekend or to get the weekend started. I think it's just the right tone, because a lot of tone is a very important thing when you go to steakhouses. So let's move on to one of my other favorite steakhouses. This place is actually honestly really, really reliable, and again sort of fits that sort of standard steakhouse vibe in terms of Las Vegas, where you can go as a date, you can go as just a fun group, you can go as a couple's date, you can go with a group of guys. And again, you're going to hear me say like, oh, this is like for a group of guys, it is what it is. I'm a guy. And that's what I think of when people come to Las Vegas. But Carversteak over at Resorts World is really, really great. A beautiful room, really, really big and vibrant. They have a nice little outdoor area, which is great. I also just love that they have like a martini cart that actually just rolls around the restaurant, which is really fun. They make a martini at your table. I believe they can also do old fashions at your table, but I know that they're specifically usually doing martinis. They have a lot of different cuts of steak on the menu as well. I enjoy their options that they have at Carversteak, so I really enjoy it. They have really great appetizers. Honestly, one of the top tier appetizer steakhouses in Las Vegas. I would say the only other place that sort of, matches that is probably Craft Steak, which is over at the MGM Grand. But I'm just going to sort of grab the menu just so I can sort of have it, ready for you guys. So we're going to download the dinner menu. So kind of just looking at the menu here, just sort of giving you guys sort of a brief overview. This can be a very expensive restaurant. I'm not going to lie, especially if you guys are ordering stuff, a la carte on your own. Can be quite pricey, but let's just go over the steaks really quick. They do have like a 10-ounce filet that is $82. They also have a boneless ribeye, which is $93. They have a Kansas City steak, which is $92, strip loin $79, and a filet mignon, which is $76. So again, it can get kind of pricey here if you are going to be ordering a lot of these options. What do I usually get? I think I might get the strip loin here, and I never get the ribeye. Honestly, guys, I never get a ribeye that's $93. Honestly, if it's over, I think like my cash out point is like $82 for a steak. Because honestly, guys, like at some point they do start kind of all tasting the same. I've never been like, oh my god, this steak is like I can differentiate from other steaks. In the moment, it's fantastic. Like they're very forgettable, the steaks, I have to say. But this is for any steakhouse. But the experience themselves is great. So yeah, I can't remember what I got here. I have to remember when I go back. I think it was a strip loin. Anyways, moving on. What I really want to talk about at Carversteak specifically is their appetizers. They're so good. I'll go here and just eat like some of their appetizers. I'll have a cocktail, appetizer. I'm good to go. I really, really enjoy, and I would say this is a can't miss if you go to Carversteak and you are going to have a dinner here. If you're going to have appetizers, you cannot miss the Wagyu cheesesteak bites. They are absolutely out of this world. I believe it comes with 3. It is a cheesesteak like bites. So it comes with caramelized onions, aged provolone, truffle, and then a buttered Parker roll. And it's toasted to perfection, and it's hot, and it's delicious, and there's layers. Oh boy. It is delicious. It is $26. It is 1,000% worth it. I highly recommend it. I get it every single time I go. I love it. I've also had their Korean glazed pork belly, which is basically like just, it's pork belly, but it's pork on like this plate, and it's perfectly, has pickled mustard seeds and scallions, but it is perfectly flavored with all the sauces. Oh, it's so good. Highly recommend that when you go as well. They also have foie gras. They have crab cakes, steak tartare, beef skewers, all that good stuff. But highly recommend the cheesesteak bites. They're delicious. They do also usually it comes with bread on the table. Do not order the bread here. The bread should come if you guys are ordering entrees. It should come with bread. By the way, you never pay for bread. Don't do it. They shouldn't make you pay for bread, and you shouldn't pay for bread on your own. Don't do it. The Caesar salad's okay. It's fine. It does the job. But it's fine. Have I had the dessert here? I don't know if I've had the dessert at this option as well. They also have seafood on the menu, which is cool. They have this lobster uncroute, which is a really cool looking dish. I've never had it. It does look cool. It's sort of like baked inside of like a pastry. It's a 2-ounce Maine lobster wrapped in a puff pastry, as it said, with lobster cognac and so on and so forth. They do have really good sides. Their mac and cheese gratin is pretty good. And what else have I had here? I've had their cream corn, which is delicious. And I love their Pommes puree. Big fan of Pommes puree if you end up going to Carversteak. So I just had this place on the top of my mind. Where did I go the other day? Oh, so I always like to recommend this option. This is a really great option if you're looking for a place that is good, but also a more approachable in terms of price point. But it is a chain. It is a high-end chain. If you've heard of this and you live in a big city, it is Smith & Wollensky. Smith & Wollensky, which is located inside of the Venetian Hotel. The Smith & Wollensky, I know people have heard of, and they used to have a much bigger restaurant on the south end of the strip. And I was like, I don't want to try this place. But then I went for Restaurant Week one year, which they honestly have like one of the best Restaurant Week menus in Las Vegas. And their steak is so good. And one of the good things about them being a chain is that they typically have more approachable prices in terms of the options that they have. And really quickly, I forgot to mention this back to Carversteak, that sets it apart is that Carversteak also lets you do this thing where you get to choose your own weapon, which is you basically get to choose your knife. So as long as you order an entree or a steak, they will bring out this little box to you. Just choose your weapon. You open up the box and they have all these different types of knives. Sometimes, like back in the day, they would explain all the knives and what they did and which one's better for which cut of meat. They don't really do that anymore. No, you don't get to keep the knife, but it is fun that you get to sort of personalize your experience with the knife that you choose. So that's just a little thing. But back to Smith & Wollensky. So Smith & Wollensky, located inside the Venetian, inside of the Grand Canal shops. Let me just pull up the menu for you guys. But I love Smith & Wollensky if you want a classic steakhouse feel, something that feels like a steakhouse. It feels like a place that you will go out for a special event with your family and you want that homey feel, from your hometown, where it feels like, you are going out for something special. It may not be like super special in terms of like the location's inside of a mall, essentially. It does have 2 floors. Most of the time you're going to be sitting on the second floor because that's where the main part of the restaurant is. It's much larger when you're up there. And the bottom floor is very much like a bar and lounge area, where the bar itself actually is beautiful. Feels very much like a New York style bar where you're sitting there. It has all the cocktails there as well as the TVs, but feels very much like you'd walk into like a New York style steakhouse. So going through the menu, I'll go into sort of like highlight some of my favorite. You go to the butcher, they have this thing called the butcher's table, and then they also have their prime steakhouse cuts. The cut that I typically get, which is phenomenal, is their boneless New York strip. It's 16 ounces. It is $80. This also has gone up in price just a little bit because this used to be, around $75. But it's 16 ounces. It's $80, which again, somewhere a little bit north of what our price point is. It's 16 ounces though, which is quite good. And they also have their bone-in New York cut, which that's $90. And of course, they have their dry-aged bone-in ribeye for 28 ounces, that is huge. That is a very large cut of meat. Again, pick your favorites. But these are very shareable. Like, I went and we actually, all three of us, split, I believe, the bone-in New York cut. Or what did we get? I'm pretty sure that's what we got because my dad loves the bone, so we ended up doing that. They also have a dry-aged porterhouse for 2. It's 42 ounces. That is way too big. That's gigantic. But you can do that. They also have really good different options in terms of the filet mignon. They also have a... Ooh, that looks interesting. They have a filet, which is $94. They have a pork chop, which is $66. Filet mignon, which is $60. Half chicken, which is $36. And, ooh, look at this. Bone-in ribeye à Prouveau, 26 ounces. Interesting. But looks good. But what I really like, what I really, really, really enjoy about Smith & Wollensky is their sides. They have really great sides in the menu. They have cream spinach. These are very classic sides. These are like sides that you would take your grandparents to or your parents, and they would be very much on board about doing this. I actually had somebody write in that they were coming to town. They're turning 27 or 28, and they wanted to have a great time with this group, but they're with their parents, they're with their friends, and how can they have a good time? I think Smith & Wollensky is a great place to please a lot of palates, especially if they're all into steak. I think it's a great, great option just because, again, a lot of the items are meant to share, so you can sort of cut down on the price by doing, a lot of different classic sides. And again, I know some people don't have a budget, and that's awesome, but we're all looking to sort of spend a little less on things, that we don't have to pay, extra for. And so many good sides. And a lot of the sides, honestly, are meant to be shared. Many of the sides, when you go to any steakhouse, are never for like one person. They are for everybody to sort of do family style and eat from. But they have cream spinach, sauteed spinach. They have sauteed mushrooms, asparagus with hollandaise sauce. They have whipped potatoes, which are $12. They have French fries. They have fried onions. They have broccolini. All these awesome things that you can... Ooh, charred romanesco. But... they do have a lot of those on the side, which I think are fantastic options. And they have many, many steak enhancements you go with. But again, this is a very approachable, very down-the-middle type of steakhouse that you can enjoy when you come to town. A couple of places that I really haven't mentioned yet that I think are a smidge overrated, but, they're beautiful rooms and they're, quite well known are Cut, which is over at the Venetian as well, the Palazzo technically, and that is Wolfgang Puck's restaurant. I think that place is a little expensive. It's the room is very elegant, very upscale, but I wasn't really a fan of the steak itself. I thought it was fine. I'm assuming when you get to the higher tiered elements of that restaurant, maybe it sets itself apart, but it was okay. But that's Cut over at the Venetian. They also have SW Steakhouse, which is inside of the Wynn. The steaks are quite thick, I have to say. Quite thick. Really expensive restaurant. Beautiful interior. It just feels like a Vegas upscale steakhouse in town, obviously. And a beautiful view. You really can't, hands down one of the better views in town of the Lake of Dreams, which is quite nice. But again, I felt it was, slightly overrated. I also had like a dessert there, and desserts are so important because they're sort of your lasting memory of the restaurant. And we had this like churro tower thing, like this churro, and they came on these like little like branches, and they were cold. Which, if anybody's ever been to Disneyland, you do not want cold churros. That's a big no-no. But let's move on. So what else do I have in my bag of tricks for you guys? Yeah, so if you go to Caesars, this is like a newer one. So Peter Luger, which is inside of Caesar's Palace, it's right next to the pool, right next to the buffet. That's can be fun. I actually like it for lunch. It's a really great lunch option. They sometimes have a lunch special. And And if they don't have lunch special, they don't have lunch special. But they do have their burger, which is, good if you like stuff that's a little bit more plain. They have their steak for one, which is actually, not too pricey and very, very approachable for somebody who wants to have a steak by themselves. But this is very much a place you go as a group. Would it be a place that you go on a date? Maybe. But I think it's much better as a group just because you're able to order like the steak for two or steak for three, and then they bring it out. It's sizzling. That's sort of like what they're known for. The steak itself was good. It was fine. The sides here throw me off. It's very East Coast coded, and again, it's like 100-year-old restaurant back in Brooklyn. But they do a lot of stuff with like potatoes and onions. That's like a big deal for them. They also do this weird thing with their potatoes as well, which I wasn't a fan of the side of like the potato hash that they have. I wasn't like on board with that. They do have this really cool like dessert, which is basically like just really, really, really thick whipped cream. I forgot what the name of it is, but they'll try to sell it to you. And then they also have their steak sauce. I mean, a lot of people know their steak sauce. They honestly want you to put it on everything. Like that is their biggest thing, is that they want you to put it on literally everything they give you. They do like a bacon dish, which is their appetizer. It's like this big, like 3 big thick slabs of bacon, which, yes, they are very, very thick and very, very filling. I love those as an entree. They were so good. I loved it. I think my dad ended up getting a crab cake, which was like kind of his thing for a moment. But it can be kind of a pricey restaurant, especially if you get a lot of the different items. But I highly recommend if you're going like as a group, to get the steak for 2 or the steak for 3, and then they break it up for you. They comes with a couple different options like sides and that kind of thing. So just take a look at the menu when you go. But you guys are coming to me for the menu stuff, so give me a second. I'll sort of pull it up. Because again, a lot of times I like pull these off the top of my head, which is a good thing and a bad thing sometimes. But if you know a lot about stuff, you sometimes don't have to like remember the experience you had and like what you ate. But you forget the prices sometimes. And again, great example. So this restaurant, if you go to the website, they click on the menu, and then you go, and it has all the stuff without the prices on it. So we are going to go and look it up in Yelp. So let's go ahead and do this. So hang tight with me. So what you do is you're going to go to Yelp, which is usually just type in the name of the restaurant, and Yelp is usually like the 3rd or 4th option down. You go to see all photos, which is going to be on the top right corner. You go to where it says menu. It'll pull up the menu. You'll have a bunch of photos of the menu. Usually gets you pointed in the right direction. And now we're here. So as we get to the appetizer, as we get to this, if you do the steak for 2, the steak for 2 is going to be $164.90. So essentially that ends up being, about 80. Yep, that's a little over $81 per person. It's 82 essentially. $82 a person if you end up getting the steak for 2. And it doesn't come with sides. You always have to look, because sometimes, what did we get? We got a vegetable. So we ended up getting, we tried their German fried potatoes, which I was not a fan of. Those are around $18. Most of their sides are around $15 to $20, depending on what you get. I always get sort of nervous when I go with my parents because they love like creamed spinach, and I don't like that. So I always have to sort of put my foot down like, no, I don't want that. But again, I don't like their sides. They have a loaded baked potato. They have French fried potatoes, which is French fries, broccoli, broiled asparagus. I like my asparagus, grilled. They have cream spinach, and they have a seafood something. So, meh. They also have, of course, they have their loin chop. They also have salmon. But like, if you're going to Luger's, like, don't order that. That was actually a really funny thing that happened back in New York. I think the New York Times went to review Luger's, and they gave them a really bad review. And they were like, yeah, we went at lunchtime, and we had the Dover sole at a steakhouse. It's like, I get like you're trying to do like the deep cuts, but I don't know, maybe like order like the steak that they're known for. Also, I think like the like shine of like Peter Luger's is like not the same, just because sometimes when you go like an old like restaurant, it's cool because it's old. Well, Peter Luger's in Vegas is not old. It's been open for like maybe 2 or 3 years. So I don't know. Maybe I just doesn't have the same thing for me anymore. But that is Peter Luger's at Caesar's Palace. Have I missed any that I really wanted to tell you guys about? Honestly, it's really important to go for the experience. Oh, and I'll give you guys a local place. A really popular local place is... A really famous local place is called... Oh my goodness. It was on the tip of my tongue and I forgot. So, there's a place called Cleaver, but it's not Cleaver what I'm going to recommend. It's Cleaver's sister restaurant. Oh my goodness. It's going to piss me off. So Cleaver's is located on Paradise. So here we go. It just took me a second of Googling, guys. I'm losing it. I am losing it. Herbs and Rye. Herbs and Rye, which is located on Spring Mountain. Herbs and Rye. I know you guys love when I do this. Herbs and Rye is located on Sahara, which is one street next to Spring Mountain. I always get confused there. And Herbs and Rye is a late night spot, very popular with locals. They do a very special, like half off after 9 o'clock. Essentially, it's almost, if you like go and you pay full price for a steak at Herbs and Rye, you done fucked up. But usually Herbs and Rye is a place that you can get half price steaks, basically like their happy hour times, which, is, most of the time. But usually after 9 o'clock, so you'll find a lot of people there. They have a nice area to sit, a nice little a nice restaurant portion, but you really want to sit like closer to the bar because that's where like the action is. It's very, very loud in there. So this is not a good place for like a quiet, intimate date. But many people take dates here all the time too. Quite a crowd pleaser with lots of dates, I have to say. But honestly, Herbs and Rye is a great place to catch cocktails as well. I think the cocktails at Herbs and Rye are top tier. A lot of bartenders will say this is like this. Honestly, Herbs and Rye for the longest time was like the only, like one of the best go-to spots for industry people after work. I do have to say that the Arts District has really alleviated that with so many industry-focused restaurants and bars that are open late night. One that I like to plug is Nocturno, which is great for, a late night cocktail and just sort of like to hang out and just sort of like that's a great place to like end up. I think it's a great place to end up before you end up going home or something because it's very chill. It's very like industry focused for people who like work as bartenders or work as waitresses or people on the strip. And I think that's kind of cool, which is really fun, which I like. I like meeting other locals, too, just to see kind of... And they give you recommendations, which is fun. I'm usually having to give the recommendations. And, like, when you go to places that are like that or like Herbs and Rye, they'll tell you, hey, you got to try this place on this street. And it's like, that's cool. Really, real sense of community, which is really nice. So, honestly, guys, I've shared a lot of steakhouses in this particular episode. And I've kind of gone all over the place. But... hopefully you guys caught one that you really enjoyed. I think gave you a good options to choose from. And I try to do different ones I've done from last time. Like I've done craft steak before. I know I've done SW steak as well. Don's Prime. I've done a lot of what's another one? What's Michael Mina's place? Strip Steak, done that one. So I know I covered a lot of steakhouses in this particular episode. So go ahead and follow me on all my socials, Brian Ortega _26 for my Instagram. You can also follow us Conscious Confidential _LV if you want to get, reach out to me. That's cool too. Don't really go on Twitter anymore, guys. Sorry. So the @Keys2Vegas Twitter is kind of dead. But you can follow me on my regular Twitter, which is Brian Ortega LV, which I'm a little bit more active on there, but you'll have to sort of stomach some of my movie takes on there as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Make sure if you see me out in town, come up, say hello. And remember, keep it confidential.